Oh.
Good morning. Welcome to the Christian Indie Writers Podcast, where we inform, encourage, and support Christian indie authors on their journey to publication. I'm Jamie Hirschberger. I write short fiction under the pen name J.R. Nichols.
I'm Jennifer Carl Tong, and I write historical Christian romance.
I'm Christina Catane, and I write Christian dystopian fiction.
I'm Rhonda Hagerman, and I write fiction and nonfiction.
All right. If you like what we're doing on the Christian Indie Writers Podcast, I would like to encourage you to like and subscribe. Also, spread the word. We want to reach as many people as possible and help people meet their writing goals. Every podcast starts off with the What's Up section, where we go around the virtual table and ask each other what's up in our personal and professional lives. So, Jen, what's up with you this week?
I'm glad you started with me, just because I really need to say, Tina, your mic is super low, and I don't know if it's not close enough to your face or not, but we could barely hear you on your greeting this morning. But what's up with me is I have been editing at breakneck speed. If breakneck is defined as the name of a pet snail that has died. Okay, so it's not that bad, but it's a slow process, because you think, you get back the notes from your editor, who is Jamie for me. Thank you, Jamie. And you're just going to make the fixes. But some of these fixes need some real deep thought and need some, maybe even big changes, not only to the scene, but maybe the story. And so it's kind of a weird headspace to be in when you're not writing, but sometimes you're just editing, but then you need to go back to writing. So been doing that. So this is kind of turning into my accountability corner. So I guess I shouldn't be doing this. But other than that, my garden. Oh, I forgot that. So my garden's come along great. Last night I stayed out there late pulling weeds. I don't know, Rhonda, if you had this issue this year, but weeds this spring overtook. I don't normally have a ton of weeds in my garden beds, and it was bad. So that was very therapeutic for me to spend some time with the Lord last night, just the two of us out there, and the Tigers game playing in the background on my phone. But yeah, so that's what's going on with me. All right, speaking of gardens, Rhonda, what's up with you?
Well, ironically, this week I haven't spent a lot of time in my garden because I started early this year and I worked so hard last year that I'm going to be able to enjoy my garden way more this year than just only working. Although I do enjoy the working part too. But you're right. It's been a good season for weeds. Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah.
You produced a bumper crop.
Yes, definitely. Of course, what I call weeds are a little different from what other people call weeds. But anyway, so let's see. This weekend was Memorial Day, and I went with some of my kids to Greenfield Village in the Detroit area to go to a Civil War reenactment. And that was so much fun. Well put together. I've never been to this before, but I'm already making plans with some of my historical societies to maybe take a group of us down there and dress as reenactors. And maybe set up our own civilian camp, possibly. So I'm kind of excited about those possibilities.
Rhonda, I have an old-fashioned I hope I still have it. It's a weaving loom that maybe I can send your way. Then maybe you could use it, because I saw one at a reenactment camp once upon a time. Anyway, we'll talk about it off screen,
we certainly will. Yes. So one of the good thing about these historical societies I'm involved in is some of the older people that I get to meet. They're just so colorful. Everybody's valuable. But this older generation, say late 70s or late 80s and older, their lives were so much different than what I can comprehend. And their stories and the things that they've lived through and the way they look at the way things are today is so entertaining and fulfilling I'm so glad I'm part of some of these people's lives. I got to spend some time with one of these ladies yesterday. She was also a Civil War reenactor. I mean, I resisted the urge to ask her if she was there for the Civil War because she's really, really old. But she is fantastic. I want to be her when I'm her age. She's just great. I got to spend some time with her yesterday. And but anyway, that has been my week.
Wonderful. So maybe Tina, why don't you tell us what happened this week in your world?
Oh, we went away for the Memorial Day weekend. Went camping, had a great time. My daughter actually lives on the campground we went to, so I got to see her. And when we got home, everybody but me got sick. So
Oh.
my husband, my husband hasn't been able to work all week because he's so sick. So
Wow.
Well, at least it held off so you guys got to enjoy your vacation.
Yeah, he actually went home early. We had taken two
Aw.
different cars because we had so much stuff to take. Because it's the first camping weekend of the year, and so we had a ton of stuff and not enough room in one car. But I pretended to be a good wife and made him chicken soup. And
Aw.
Pretended, whatever. We all know better than that.
I wonder if he was just pretending to be sick so he would get some of
Oh,
your
no,
famous
no, no,
chicken soup. Didn't your chicken soup like get you a proposal? Didn't you say?
from him, yeah, that's when he decided he was going to marry me. He was sick one time. I made him chicken soup.
Aw.
That's
So
nice.
All right. Well, for my What's Up this week, I'm going to share a story that the podcast ladies have heard. Maybe one of you wasn't there for the conversation, but you did not hear the second half of the story. So my husband had an employee, a former employee, recently passed away within the last week. And he was a 30-year-old man with young children. And the news was surprising because, I mean, if you cast your mind about the people who are ill and the people that you are sort of prepared to say goodbye to, you never really expect it to be somebody who is young and not really showing signs of illness. However, it then came to light that he'd been struggling with some addiction issues and things like that, and it was not any longer a surprise that we might lose him. So that's sort of the sad part of the story. But the part of the story I didn't know when I was talking to you ladies about this earlier is that my husband's aunt had, I noticed that she had been providing him with like a backpack full of clothes for the road. And she'd kind of taken him under her wing a little bit as like another son or something like that. What I didn't know was that while he was in Michigan with our family, he went over to a Bible study at Stasha's aunt's house, and he gave his life to the Lord while he was at that Bible study. So
Praise
I just
God.
wanted to share that because you never know what your role is going to be in somebody's life. And it was just really struck me as profound this
Wow,
week.
that's
So I wanted to share
wonderful.
that on the podcast.
And I'm sure that
Okay.
your husband has found comfort in that as well, because it's hard when you lose someone, especially when you don't know that if you have made an impact. So that's great.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, that's
Can
it
I
for
interrupt
the,
just
yeah.
a quick second before we move on? Robin is in chat and she said her What's Up is she's slowly building on office hours habit this week. So I want to shout
Oh,
out.
good.
Congratulations,
Fun.
Robin. If you're tuning in and you don't know what that means, we do have an episode on office hours that you can look on our YouTube channel or scroll down in our iTunes if you're interested. All right.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for joining us today, Robin. Okay, we're going to move on to our topic du jour, which is online writing groups. Ladies, we have an online writing group. We sort of have one by accident because we had a real life writing group and then I moved hundreds of miles away.
Ruining everything.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we didn't really say let's have a writing group. We more or less said let's do a podcast, but we've found out that this gathering that we have has, especially in the postcast, has taken the place of a writing group or has served us that way. So
And I think that it's good for us to talk about this because some of the women, Robin, I think included, and some people that have been following us or that have tweeted us have a thing I think that I see over and over again in writers, whether Christian or not, on Twitter and elsewhere, is that people are looking for community. People are looking for what we have. And it doesn't happen overnight, but it is something that you can have, and it does not have to be within your own personal circle. So we've talked before about how to find a writing group or how to start a writing group, but what do you do if there is no one local and you would be interested in doing an online one? So this is what we're going to talk about today.
yes, because what are some of the reasons that local groups haven't worked out for you ladies? If nobody has anything to share, I do, but does anyone have something to share about that?
Putting clothes on. That's probably
a
my
good
number
point.
one.
If you're a writer, chances are you have a little bit of a reclusive nature and, getting up to leave the house is maybe not something you want to do. So
finding like-minded writers, because just because somebody is a writer, I mean, you can't automatically assume that they are like-minded. And for us, or for me, we did meet through a nano group, which, well, I guess that's one of the things about how to find writing groups. But the others in our nano group, as nice as they are, they weren't Christian. They didn't have the same type of ideals we did, and conversations would lead down paths during social time that I didn't want to be part of. And so for me, going to that group is not only effective, but edifying for me.
Yeah, that's for me too, was a lot of the people that I was meeting were not Christians, and it wasn't just the conversations outside of the writing group, the social stuff, but the actual subject matter of their books. Quite frankly, was not something that I would read. Full of cursing and sex and dark elements of the spiritual world, like vampires and stuff like that. Is just, I'm not saying that that's necessarily sinful, but that's just something that I avoid in my life. So it was really hard to connect with them because I couldn't talk to them outside of writing, and I couldn't talk about their writing either without feeling uncomfortable. So,
and when you're in a writing,
go ahead.
When you're in a writing group, you're expected to not only read it, but critique it and to comment on it. And that's difficult.
Yeah, I could echo everything that you guys said, but then also something that was missing for me was just sort of a purpose or objective for being there. Because a lot of times, if you're in a writing group that isn't headed in the direction of publication, or if you're all maybe working towards submitting to a particular contest, or maybe you're all a member of the Florida Writer Association places having a contest, if you don't have a shared objective, people can just kind of spin their wheels and never get across the finish line and finish anything or be heading anywhere in a direction with their writing. And I really wanted people that were moving forward in the writing and kind of not staying stagnated in the place where they currently were. So that's something I was looking for in a writing group and didn't find outside of this group.
Yeah, that's really, really important too. Like, not just the common goals of like what type of writing or what edifies you, but also like where you're headed with your career. Robin says a couple of things. She talks about that she has some great writing friends that she's met across the nation through Camp Nano, through North America. She says, sorry, not nation, because she's not in America like we are. Sorry, our Canadian friend Robin. But she says that weather for her, it's not good up there. And so sometimes you just don't want to get out, or they meet at night, and it's just so that's another thing too, is like, it's not just the fact that you don't want to, like, you might not be shy, but like depending on where you live, sometimes it's just not easy to travel to an actual physical location.
Okay, so we've said why maybe a real life writing group isn't working out for you, and you might want to try to find a virtual one. How do you find fellow writing group mates, ladies?
Well, we met through Nano, so that's always an option. So if you haven't done Nano, at least join the go to the page and join Nano so that you can find your local writing group, because you just never know. You might find even one other person, and from that one other person, that you might, both you spiderweb out, and you might end up finding a group. So
something there is now that we didn't really have when I first started looking for a writing group was all the groups on Facebook. There's a group on Facebook for basically everybody, and that doesn't give the kind of community that I needed, but I started developing some friendships through messaging these folks, and I'm not writing with any of those, but for instance, my lamp working groups, that was a great community and a way to find local people to get together with. And I'm sure that could transfer over. If I was a more social person, I'm sure that could transfer over very well to writing.
Well, and I think that a good benefit of those kinds of platforms is that you can see someone's character over time, the things that they post, and whether or not you think they would be a good mesh with your personality. I mean, you don't have to be clones of one another, but again, you have to be sort of like-minded as far as your worldview and the kinds of things that you would be writing and sharing. And those things you can find out by just watching how people engage in the group.
Yep.
Social media outlets too, like Twitter, I would say exclusively for me is the people that follow me and I follow them, are other writers. I would say, besides the few fun things I follow, like the Detroit Tigers and the Lions and different musicians that I like. But so you can also build relationships that way. There are a few Christian writers that I have met through that, not just through the podcast, but through my own personal ones that we've messaged a few times. So other social media outlets are a good idea. The chat in this podcast is another place that you can meet someone to be in your writing group. Hint, hint, hint. Chat it up with us, people.
So once you've got your little merry band of writers, what do you have to establish? What's one of the first things that's gonna come
Who's
up?
going to be Robin Hood?
Yep.
I call dibs on the fryer.
Yeah.
Like the comfy robe.
Okay. I'm like, why would that be your first choice? The comfy robe.
Yeah.
I thought maybe it was my first thought when you said that. Sorry, squirrel. If you're from Michigan, especially from the Detroit area, which my mom is, and Jamie's from Metro Detroit, my first thought when you said that was like a Saunders cream puff. Do you guys remember Friar? Was it called Friar Tux? It was like a chain of
Yes.
and they would have the Saunders cream puff, which is this like delicacy that's like a deep fried, like eggy kind of a pastry. They cut in half and put a scoop of vanilla ice cream between it and Saunders hot fudge over the top.
Well, Tina, I guess it's a road trip for you and me.
Well, I like road trips, but that does not sound good to me at all.
Oh my
I don't
goodness.
think there's any Friar Tucks anymore, but there is a place at in Novi at the 12 Oaks Mall that does serve Saunders cream puffs.
Yeah, and they have it at Great Lakes Crossing also. So okay, big squirrel.
Sorry.
So that's
So
right.
the first, your question was, what are some things you have to establish? And has nothing to do with dessert. I would say probably what time you're going to meet is the obvious one, because that would probably weed out a ton of people. Like we are luckily all the same time zone, even though we're across the north and south of the country. But you would probably have to deal with, if you're dealing with different time zones, that could be an issue, but it may not be as big of one as you think, because I have a friend who lives just outside of London and we chat fairly often through social media because she's a night owl and I'm an early bird. So sometimes we meet up in the middle somewhere. So, but that would be obviously, I think one of the first issues is because if you work full time and you found people in a group that want to meet at 10 a.m. and you're at work, that's not going to pan out. Obviously.
No, and I would say that that's one of the benefits, something that we jotted in our notes, of starting small. I think if you find one good buddy and the two of you can agree on a date and time, then you add other people based on that date and time, not necessarily having 7 people ready to go and then trying to juggle a schedule. I mean, it happened to work out for us that way, but it's usually easier to have the date and time established before your group gets too many people that are interested in joining. Would you guys agree, or would you disagree with that?
Yeah, I agree with that. Also, I think for me, the second thing would be, what is your purpose? Because not all writing groups have the same purpose.
Yeah.
And so I think that you would need to be on the same page about that, have a meeting of the minds of what is our purpose? Why are we doing this?
Right, because just because I need a writing group that's moving toward publication or some other big objective does not mean every writing group that is good has that. Some people write for therapeutic reasons. Some people write for just like memoir type stuff. Some people are writing just to leave a legacy for their children. And all of that is very valid and good, but you don't want... The key to disappointment is unmet expectations, right? So I think that it's safe to say you just all have to be expecting the same thing when you're going into it. Would you agree? And so maybe not just about the direction the group is going, but about what other things would you have to make sure your expectations are clear about?
Like how often you're going to meet.
Yeah.
Because if I'm looking for somebody to meet up with me, like we talked at the beginning of the podcast about office hours, and which is a completely separate thing from writing group. They can go together, but office hours, in my opinion, and for what we've agreed on, is that it is a daily, or at least you have certain days a week that you are going to show up there and you're working and you're keeping each other accountable. But we're not doing writing group in our office hours. Writing group is separate. So I don't know how many times would you, if you were starting a group right now, ladies, how often would you say that you would meet for writing group?
You're saying like our ideal, what we would wish.
Yeah.
I would want monthly with my current schedule, but I could maybe get down with twice a month if I didn't also have like the podcast and everything going on. Like,
Right.
every 2 weeks or something like that, the first and third Fridays or whatever.
Yeah.
Probably would be good for me. And also,
for me,
go ahead, Rhonda.
I would say weekly for me, simply because I have a lot of interests in life, and meeting once a month like we did originally, I would do great for the first week after or the week before, but the 2 weeks in between, I would get distracted by everything else I was interested in. And having the weekly accountability, it's true.
Yeah.
Having the weekly accountability, like we have now, is much more helpful for my writing career or habit.
So maybe if we could encourage those that are considering starting an online writing group, that start with monthly, like start with one person, maybe two, start monthly, and then incorporate in more accountability. So the writing group time that you would meet would be when you would submit something that was edited and complete, and then you would have to read each other's and then come back with a good quality critique to help them to improve their writing. So maybe somebody starting out wouldn't be able to do that weekly, like we do that weekly, the four of us, because of the postcast. But maybe starting off, they shouldn't have that expectation. What do you ladies think about that?
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because even I struggle to have something to submit every week. Especially since I'm in the editing phase now, and a lot of the writing I'm doing is just writing exercises to keep my brain glowing, and most of the actual work I'm doing is editing. So I struggle to come up with. So I've been like using prompts and just writing, doing writing exercises and submitting that. And so if you're not used to writing every day, it could be difficult to come up with something once a week.
Well, and again, I think it's a matter of just setting the expectations. So like in Rhonda's ideal writing group, possibly you wouldn't be expected to turn in a polished piece every week. Possibly it would just be a check-in for accountability and, until whatever meeting. And the point is you can structure it however is going to work for the personalities of the people in your group. And I would recommend building into your initial fledgling launch, we're going to reevaluate in 3 months, or we're going to reevaluate on this particular date when we get together and see how it's working for everybody. Because especially if you're starting with a bunch of people who are brand new to writing and they don't even know their own rhythm, they don't even know their own style and what they're even capable of, their needs might change. And you need to feel safe to express that to the people in your writing group, because the goal should be for it to be a good experience for everybody who's a member.
I think that's a really great point, because if people could have just started with us from the very beginning and watched this whole journey, we have changed our writing group over time as we've needed to, and as we've grown, and as we've realized what works and what doesn't. So sorry.
Yeah,
Tina.
and frankly, I'm sorry, I do really miss the other ladies. We were 7. We were 7, and I just want to say that though we seem to have moved on to just us 4 getting together on the regular, I really love it when the 7 of us can all be together.
5. Hello.
Oh no.
I was gonna say that the original question I didn't get to answer was about the frequency.
Yeah.
And so if I have to get dressed, like Rhonda said, and get in my car and go somewhere, that changes like the frequency for me. So once a month would be great.
But if we're talking virtual,
but virtual is different, because like you only have to be dressed from here up. I'm not saying I'm not.
It depends on the rules of your writing group,
Barb just said, "Aw," and I think she's referring to what you said, Jamie. We all agree with what Jamie
One
said.
time we got on a group call and Barb was there. I was still missing the other 2, but it was just really fun to have the whole feeling of the 7 voices back. And we did have to work around, allotting enough time for 7 people to have input. And those are things that you have to consider. And you have to make it clear that everybody gets to have a voice and say, what is going to work for me? What do I need from the writing group? Correct?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And before everybody moved away and everything, one thing we did decide to change was every other time you would share. So there was always a sharing time, but you didn't have to have something written every single week. And we always got to hear from everybody over the month.
Yeah.
Robin says, I agree with Jamie on where you're going with your writing. I have a good friend who is more or less on the same track, but we don't write the same things. All right, that's a really good point. I don't believe you have to write the same genre or the same type of things to be in the same writing group, because if you look at the four of us, we all write something different. Now, would I benefit from being in a group of Christian ladies that all write romance? I think I would, because we all write the same thing and would be able to like help each other hone that specific craft. Would each of you ladies, get something out of the same thing? Yeah, you probably would. However, what I get from you guys is so valuable that I wouldn't get from someone who writes romance, because I'm sometimes so inside my head of my genre that I forget that someone might pick up my book that doesn't read my genre. And there are things that are so tropey that I forget, like when you guys read it, you're like, no, not so much. And so I think there's a lot of value in having writers outside of your genre. So that's a really good point.
Yeah, and also I think that what is important is not necessarily that you share a genre, but that you invest in one another to the degree where you're seeking the success of the other person.
Yeah.
And frankly, it might be easier if you're not writing in the same genre, because then you're not having any kind of comparing going on, and you're able to be a cheerleader for somebody who's doing something totally else in this other realm. And there is not a risk maybe of feeling like, oh, if only I could write kissing scenes like Jennifer or something like that.
Well, how many of us have
That's
been
my
part of a
bark
writing
bag.
group? Yeah, how many of us and those listening have been part of a writing group where the critiquing, you felt like it was more of people trying to show off, and it was more of a competition than it was trying to help each other. I left a writing group because it was just, I felt like just gross every time I left there, because I just felt like people were just so mean to each other for no reason other than trying to show you that you're not as good of a writer as I am. Ridiculous. Ridiculous.
Right. I know Barb in chat. I don't know if she's going to pipe up or not, but she was in a writing group where it was almost a badge of honor if you could just tear someone's book apart. Like they felt, well, I can prove to you that I read your writing because I'm going to tear it down to the ground. And just there was no purpose for the meanness, but it was like a badge of honor in that group.
We should probably revisit. We talked about this a little bit. We should probably revisit and do another episode on how to critique properly, because it is very important that you're honest. And you three are very honest with me. And sometimes I get things back from you guys all marked up, but I don't take it personally, because you're marking it all up because you are invested in me and my career, and you want what's best for me. And that's important. And again, that might not happen overnight with a brand new writing group, but that should be something that is a goal. So,
well, we're about reaching the halfway point on our in our podcast, so we don't have too much more time to discuss the topic. Is there something that we missed? I did mention advocating for your position, but I think we should talk a little bit about compromise too.
Yeah, I mean, because things are gonna change, and if you think we have to share every single time, but you're not looking at the other persons in your writing group who just really needs some developmental help with their story, and just needs to really be able to take their time and have you as their sounding board, then you are not helping them further their career.
And I think that this is where the Christian component can really come in, because we have to be praying for one another and wanting the best for one another and following the golden rule and all of those things that are lumped in with just, loving your neighbor and walking a life that honors Christ, right?
Right.
So if you're all ready to go, when you all agree that you want to do this online writing group thing, because it sounds so nice not to have to put on pants to go to a writing group, how do you get started?
Well, besides finding the group, you mean the actual
once you have your people,
technology.
how do you,
I think the easiest, we've done lots of different things. We started in Skype, and Skype was not great, but it does work for some people. It did not work for me. I'm sorry, my phone is hearing me and starting to try to pull up Skype. So we tried Skype, and it didn't work for us very well. We tried using Discord, which we love Discord. But it just was so much on our machines that we had so many tech issues with Discord.
Oh goodness, that's something to talk about too, because the tech has to be able to support whatever you're going to run. So you might be someone with a gaming laptop playing Skyrim and whatever, but you have to understand that someone else might have a little old dinosaur that they're trying to limp along with. So you
Right.
have to make sure that you're not using an intensive resource monster, maybe.
Right. So for us, what we finally ended up with for the podcast and everything was Google Hangouts, and hangouts.google.com. You just go there and you put in you can either put in their email address and it will send them an invite, or you can copy the link and just paste it into, a text message or a Facebook message or whatever. And it doesn't take really any tech savvy. They click the link and they're with you. It doesn't take a whole lot of power or juice from your computer. It works very easy for us.
And you can do it on your phone if
you can.
yeah.
We've
So
done
even
that.
if you don't have a machine that is even connected to the internet, for discipline reasons or whatever, you can have your phone perched, right? Yeah, we've done it, haven't we, Jen?
Yeah, Jamie's had like field trips and things with her kids, and they've been off in the zoo, and she's been sitting there in her car hanging out with us doing her writing. I mean, like it's very doable. Another one that's very portable, we have done it a little bit, but to me it's not as good as Google Hangouts, but you can use Facebook Messenger to do phone calls. You do a group message. Everybody that it is in your writing group would be in that group message, and you hit the video camera icon and it makes a phone call and everyone comes on. It's a little grainy, a little bit skippy. It's not as good as this, but it's better than a lot of other things, and it's free. Both of these things are absolutely free. Google Hangouts and the Facebook Messenger app are absolutely free. So
okay, well, I'm about to switch gears, but I feel like we've maybe possibly spurred a whole lot of questions from people that we may not have time to answer in this particular episode. So we would be willing to revisit this if you want to reach out to us and say, hey, we need another episode because we need to know, how do you handle microphones, or how do you handle background noise, or whatever. If you need more on this topic, please let us know, and I'm sure we'd be willing to revisit it. How does the chat look? Is it quiet?
it's quiet, right? Oh, Barb says, we are so blessed to live in the tech era. ESP for us introverts who struggle to leave their little cocoon, especially for those. Yeah.
Well, ESP too, that's really handy.
She actually capitalized it. That's why I was like reading it that way.
I was going to say earlier about starting the meeting. Also, if you're looking for like logistical stuff, I've planned a lot of meetings, and we always try to start with some kind of icebreaker. And for us, we do these 15-minute writing sprints, and then those are just so much fun, and they get your juices flowing. And so if you're feeling awkward and you're like, what do we do first? I highly recommend doing that first. It gets your writing juices flowing. It kind of gets you feeling a little silly sometimes if you have a silly prompt, and it just really does break the ice.
And it helps to get positive feedback from people, right? So it just, even because you're not going to give any negative critique, and you'll be amazed at how much. Yeah, right. And you'll be amazed at how good you write in 15 minutes. And it's just fun for everybody. And that's a great suggestion.
And it helps you to get vulnerable with the people that are in your group, because you've just written this, you haven't edited it. And then you have to make the rule, no shaming your work before you share it, because we all only got 15 minutes. It's kind of fun. And you all get to share something just raw, that's just your brain right off the top of your head. What a great suggestion, Tina.
Because that's very important. You will be vulnerable in front of these people. You have to be vulnerable in front of these people, and they have to be vulnerable in front of you. Otherwise, it is not going to be a successful writing group.
That's why we require sharing, because we feel like it's only fair that everybody shares. So like in the group where the badge of honor is to tear down someone's book. Well, what about when it's your turn, Miss? I think I'm best-selling author and my duty is to tear everybody else down. How about when it's your turn to share? Are you giving what you want to give?
Right. That's another reason why I left that other writing group, is because the people that were the most critical of others and had the most, I felt, nasty things to say showed up without work. Oh, I didn't have time this month. Then you shouldn't get the right to critique. You should have to sit there silently. That's how. And so we had that discussion early on. Again, back to expectations. We set that expectation up that if you don't bring, you can't critique. And we did it in a loving way, because we want to be able to be vulnerable with each other. So,
All right.
but-
So any last thoughts?
yeah, just real quick, if you are interested in being in an online writing group and you don't know where to start, tweet me, tweet Christian Indie Writers at Christian Indie Writ, I think it is, on Twitter. Let us know. Maybe we can help hook you up with some other people. We'd be more than happy to help you figure out the tech issues, if as far as our tech knowledge goes. But that's what we're here for. We are here. This is a ministry for us. We are here to not only help you. We don't want you just to watch our journey. We want to help pull you along on your journey toward publication. So please reach out to us.
Awesome. I'm glad that you ended with that. So now it's time for the feeding of the backs. The what? Well, it's just kind of a little joke because we all have a piece that we just did in the 15 minutes before the podcast started, and we're going to get feedback. Get it? Is your back well fed? Is what I like to ask people. So it's time for the feeding of the backs. Positive feedback only on these pieces, again, because we are being our most vulnerable, just spinning the words off the top of our head in 15 minutes. If you would like to see how we really critique a polished piece of work, you can find those episodes, our postcast, on our Patreon. So who is going to go for? Oh, Jennifer always goes first. That's right.
Golly. I don't mind because
what were our 5 words that inspired us today?
Our 5 words that Tina found for us on the website, the random website we use: majority, emotion, title, consumption, and hostage. I did not like these words. I did not have a clue what I was going to write because I've been trying to write, as a reminder to everybody listening, the 4 of us are doing a short story compilation together in each of our genres. That's going to be coming out at Christmas time. And so I wanted to write within that character world to help build my own knowledge up of my characters and who they are, but also maybe I could use it in the book. But also because I want to give our listeners, since we're not sharing any of this book during our postcast, I wanted to give the listeners maybe a little taste of what to expect. I thought that'd be fun. And I couldn't figure out how to use these words. So this is not written in that world. And this was completely inspired by one of the last words said before we had to go silent and start writing in our group. So nobody saw this except for the 4 of us.
Oh, boy.
What was that word?
You'll find out.
Oh.
You'll figure it out really fast. Wait,
Okay.
I need my glasses on. Sorry.
This is going to be quite a feeding of the back session, I can tell you already, because of my submission. Okay, go ahead.
Also, this is also a great example of when the story is done, it's done. I did not use all my 15 minutes. I did not need all my 15 minutes. The story is complete. All right. The machine-cut designs of the crystal clear glass sparkled against the tempting, shimmering viridian liquid it held, holding me hostage in its promise of salty goodness. The title on the label read Clausen, but I knew better. I knew that beneath that Danish-named facade was an item that should be labeled Nectar of the Gods or food that gives life force. Consumption would bring such joy and emotion I had experienced very little of lately. Maybe Clausen, with its Santa Claus-based name, was the perfect title for this delicacy, a present to all who partake. The majority of me wanted to walk past, ignoring the desire rising within me, but my stomach rebelled against the majority. It longed for satisfaction. I reached out and grabbed the jar of baby gherkin pickles and placed it in my cart. It was going to be a good weekend.
Yay!
Oh, I want a pickle so bad.
I know, me too. That's where my head was, because right before we started the sprint, somebody made a reference to the pickle factory in a town close to here that we're basing our story on. And I'm like, what pickle company? And they're like, Clausen. And I'm like, Clausen.
I think that during our next business meeting, we should discuss maybe adding a temporary new segment, which is update on the Christmas compilation, so that we will have a recurring update for the fans. Jennifer, I really thought, like, I was picturing like a goblet, and I really somehow thought it was filled with urine.
Me too.
Green urine?
You said like amber or something?
Viridian.
Oh. Anyway, so
but I wanted you to think goblet or something fancy. Like I wanted that.
Well, I had in my mind the bird stories, so I was waiting for something like that.
The bird stories.
Oh yes, yeah. Would you like me to go next?
Yes.
Oh, maybe.
All right, here we go. Jen had not been
Oh, no.
prepared for the wave of emotion that overswept her as she opened her Twitter feed.
Oh, crap. I know what you're
The majority of podcast followers voted on Maple Grove for the upcoming Christmas compilation she was putting together with her 3 podcast co-hosts. She had put on a brave front when the others had proposed to add that name to the poll, confident that one of the other choices would win. But now that Maple Grove had been declared the clear winner, her own suggested name still in a tie with the others for second place, Jen had to admit that no other 3 syllables had the power to take her mind and her heart hostage.
Nope.
Maple Grove, she whispered. And as if the words were an incantation, she was back there in the summer of 1987, surrounded by jostling, laughing students as they waited for the bus to bring them back to the school. Hey, look, dreamy Timothy Clarke had shouted, pointing in Jen's direction. It took her a moment to realize he was pointing not at her, but to a bench in the park behind the group of waiting students. A lone figure sat on the bench, hunched and dark in the shadows of the surrounding trees. It's a bag lady, Timothy said. But Jen saw no bags, only the slumped form and the birds gathered around her. Jen watched as the figure extended, then withdrew an arm. She's feeding the birds, Jen said, louder than she'd meant. She'd only wanted her best friend Millie to hear. But in the way that sometimes happens, Jen's statement coincided with a momentary silence which fell over the group. Timothy stilled. His friends stilled. It was obvious to everyone present that he had taken Jen's words as a challenge to his assessment. Everyone waited to see how he would handle the challenge. Dare you to go talk to her, he finally said. Jennifer felt her face grow warm and cursed herself for the blush. She did not want to cower at this challenge. This beautiful boy used his good looks and influence like a weapon, and though she'd never thought her opportunity to show him up would happen on a field trip to Maple Grove, here it was. She clenched her fists and tipped her chin up. Fine, I will. She marched over to where the woman sat before she could change her mind. Her rapid steps sent the birds into the air. Before she knew what was happening, Jen was surrounded by the rush of air caused by flapping wings. Something warm hit the top of her head. Something wet slid down the side of her face. As the group of kids erupted into shouts and laughter, Jennifer made a promise to herself that she would never again return to Maple Grove.
That's the reason, Jennifer?
No, that happened in San Marco Piazza. You missed. All right, so I'm telling you, the precast. We would figure out a way of recording the precast because it's solid gold. So I told the story of when I was in high school and was in Italy in Venice and got pooped on in front of all these really, really cute high school boys. And so anyway, so thank you very much for that, Jamie. And we're not using Maple Grove. I don't care what you guys say. Before we put out that poll, we said, well, this is just a suggestion. We don't have to go with what they say, and we're not doing it. We're not doing it.
No, so hilarious because so not only was I inspired by the Piazza field trip, but by Jennifer's strong, strident reaction on Twitter, which Rhonda only saw this morning. She opened up and she went, "Aw!" Like, so anyway, I just had so much material. When I saw the word title, I'm like, there we go. This is what we're doing.
Jamie, you never cease to amaze me. It's amazing to me. I understand why you are a drama coach because you can. It is a gift straight from God, the way that you can write these stories so complete, so quickly.
Oh, thanks, Rhonda. That's really nice of you to say. I so appreciate it.
In the chat, Robin says, all caps, so she's yelling at you. It sounds like a retirement village.
Maybe in Canada.
Silver Hills.
She also says
she thinks is a retirement village.
No, this one too.
Oh, really?
I think so. So, and then she also says in quotes, feed the birds, tuppence a bag, tuppence.
Yes.
Tuppence.
Yes.
Tuppence.
Oh,
that's what I thought of too.
In my head right now.
I know, me too.
Yes. I didn't get the memo that we were supposed to include each other in the stories today.
Oh, I only did it because I know Jennifer can take it. She, I think, I hope that we're not going to fight when I see you.
Always. Hey,
Like
Another squirrel moment. Rhonda, is your shirt blue?
no,
No.
it's gray.
Oh, so close. Oh, you didn't get the
Because
memo.
Jen and I showed
Aw.
up both wearing the blue, and I
Dude.
said, "Oh, I wonder if the others got the memo." And Tina showed up in blue, and then, well,
Well, if it had been
Anyway.
on Twitter, I would have seen it. It's not.
You're right.
that's another thing.
Right.
Yeah, Rhonda and I are trying to like Twitter so hard. We're trying. Okay, so someone else has to read now. So Tina doesn't like to go last. Is that
Go
okay
ahead,
with you, Rhonda?
Yep.
Okay. Let me open this up. Can you guys hear me okay? Because I know Jen said something about me being quiet earlier.
I hear you.
A little
Okay.
quiet.
Okay.
A little quiet. It's better than it was at the beginning.
Okay. Sir, we have a hostage situation, said Officer Smith. Where? asked DCI Jones, already halfway out the door, pulling his jacket on before Officer Smith could reply. Down at the docks, the old fish factory, said Officer Smith. Tell me everything you know. The two men disappeared down the stairs, and Penelope sighed. They were sure to be on the scene the majority of the day, and she would be stuck here behind a desk. A detective by title only, relegated to doing grunt work and research instead of being out in the field where the real stuff happened. It was bad enough that as a female, she was expected to be one of the boys, show no emotion, be part of the team, which meant making the men their tea and running their errands half the time. She had seriously thought about leaving the force, but she just wasn't a quitter. Even old Joe was out on the streets chasing up the bad guys, despite having a case of consumption that had plagued him for almost a decade, probably attributable to the 2 packs of cigarettes he smoked every day. What Penelope needed was a case of her own. She could make a name, one she could make a name with, get some credibility, a reputation. Penelope sighed again and returned to the database of mugshots she's been sifting through, looking for MOs that matched a current case. Judy, the receptionist, hurried into the squad room. Where is everybody? She asked, breathless from having run up the stairs. Out on a case, said Penelope. I got a woman down at the desk, crying, all covered in blood. Says some bloke raped her and she killed him for it. Penelope rose from her chair, took a deep breath, and headed for the stairs. This could be it. This could be her case. She squared her shoulders and held her chin up as she pushed through the doors into the foyer. But when she saw the young girl standing before her, her facade crumbled. The girl couldn't be more than 17. Her hair was tangled and half hanging out of what used to be an updo. The kohl makeup around her eyes had run, making her look like a crying raccoon. She wore a short leather skirt and a ripped tank top, which had once been white but was now red with blood.
It can't be over. No.
The timer went off.
More. Please, more.
Wow.
And I
Tina,
love
that is really
because-
good.
Yeah, I was like, well, I'm not going to give any meat, but I did not like that she was so stoic and so happy to have a case. And then you gave it to me. Bam. This is really a person. So it was so satisfying to see that she's human and not just some robotic cop person. I loved that.
Well, Jamie, I've got to disagree with you. Okay, first of all, Tina, you win the day simply because of your use of consumption.
Yeah, I forgot about that word.
B, the fact about, or the part of it where the detective was glad to get a case,
Yeah.
you know, that they look at it differently than we do, who could be possibly the victim, because that's their job. That's what
Yeah.
they. So I appreciate that she showed that side, and then also the victim.
Yeah,
emotion
agreed.
a little bit.
I
Yeah,
really,
good stuff.
really like this. And also you can tell that you've been watching a lot of British. DCI. They're
Crime
having
Bureau,
tea and not
right?
coffee.
Yeah, what does DCI stand for?
Detective Chief Inspector,
Oh, okay.
I think.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And
I
usually
watch
it goes
almost
DL after that.
I watch almost exclusively British crime shows.
Yep.
Yeah, and
when
I'm
I
a
watch
fan.
TV. So
I'm a fan. So yeah, I would like to see. And I love the idea. Like I love the whole premise. So here she is trying to make a name for herself, and she's relegated to the desk. Like it's very set up to be something super engaging and gripping, in my opinion.
thank you. I'm
All right.
sorry about my reading. I couldn't see it. Like
I thought it was fine.
It wasn't distracting to me.
Okay.
All right, John Rondo, what have you got for us?
Okay. I love the words. Thank you, Tina. You did a fantastic job. I used all but 2 of them in this one. but I'm not done writing this. I'm going to complete this tonight. This is about a third of the way done, I'd say. And it may or may not be based on real life, depending on who's watching today. Okay. So, yeah. If it's only mom, then it can be real life. All right. I stopped dead in my tracks, not believing the sight before me. Is it too late to turn and run? Did they see me yet? I try to stop the door from slamming behind me. Everything is in slow motion. What a disaster. I'm so close. One foot is out the door, so if I can just get the other one. Oh, Margie's here. Good. Carol heads to me with a stack of newspapers in one hand, scissors in the other. I already started cutting out the recipe for Rosie's new menu. She reached out to put her arm on the shoulders of the woman who sidled up beside her. This is Margot. I thought we could use a hand. I nodded at her, reminding myself to act sincere. I'm already formulating a plan to keep myself from becoming a hostage to the situation. Hi, Margaret. It's nice to see you finally. It's nice to finally work on a project with you. She smiled and held her hand out to me. I resist the urge to harshly correct her on my name. I was named after my great-grandmother's twin sister, Marjorie. Her name was not Margaret. I grit my teeth, but don't force myself to make small talk with her. Instead, I turn to Rosie and ask how the project is going. The majority of the sections are full, but these nice ladies offered to help find more recipes for the thin areas of the cookbook. I have to go now, but Margot has some great ideas for us. Okay, Rosie, I'll see you later, I say with no enthusiasm. Carol is now the only buffer between me and this disaster of a narcissist in front of me.
Oh my goodness.
That's it. So there's 2 more sections after this, and I'm excited to write it.
Okay.
That's
so,
awesome.
Like, yeah, because I really want to know. There has to be history, right? Like, is she knows she's not going to like this person, even though it feels like a first encounter?
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a new volunteer in the area, and it turns out that she wants to run for like city council or something.
Oh.
And so she's not doing this because she loves history, which are the kind of people that Margie respects. She's doing it for the kudos.
Yeah.
Of it. And Margie is not someone who is manipulated by emotion.
Got it.
And this woman, a new politician on the scene, is going to try to manipulate her with emotion.
Right, because that's what she deals in. That's her currency,
Yep.
is swaying people. Wow, really cool. That's exciting. It's exciting. It's really not fair that you came in today and said, well, I already know what I'm writing, so I don't even care what the words are. That really felt unfair. But I'm really glad that
I didn't write that.
Oh.
That's gonna have to wait because these words just totally fit into this other thing I wanted to write.
Well, it was very, very good. I thought that you had thought about it ahead of time. It was so good.
Yeah.
All right.
Really
So does everybody's back feel well fed?
Yep.
Yes.
Great. Now everybody can line up for their little slap on the wrist. No, just kidding. Now that we've told you what a wonderful writer you are, let's talk about whether or not you actually did any writing this week. It's time to go to the accountability corner. And I will go first, just so then when I talk later, I'm not talking for a bunch all at the same time. I finished 1 short ready for publication out of the 3 that was my goal. But I am not unhappy with the amount of work that I got done this week. I was super productive. And I think I'm returning to my book 3. I opened it up just to see if it's really as bad as I remember. And I think I've had enough time away from it that I can polish it up and get it out there. I'm not going to make a goal for that. My goal for Thursday is going to be to have my rough draft of the Christmas story done, because we've given ourselves a deadline of June something, and I need to have it done before that because I'm traveling. So that's a deadline that I have for myself, and I'm going to make a goal to show up for office hours every day. And I really appreciate that we've been doing a writing sprint first thing. It's really helped me to kind of get the gears turning and the juices flowing so early in the morning. So that's my turn. Who wants to go next? Any volunteers, or shall I pick someone?
I'll go.
All right, Tina, what were your goals? Did you meet them? What are your new goals?
My goals were. But I did get quite a bit accomplished on my editing. I'm happy with that. And I've worked on my Christmas compilation story, and I know that was one of my goals. I don't remember if I said I was going to have the rough draft done or if I was just going to work on it. I don't have it complete, but I do have it a partial rough draft. So I'm happy with that. And I missed 3 days of writing time because of going camping. So I'm happy with what I got done. And so my goal for next week is to continue to write every day, to work on the Christmas compilation and get that rough draft done, and to continue with my editing.
So for something measurable and specific, you were going to have your rough draft done by Thursday?
I don't know. I'd like to have it 2/3 of the way done.
Awesome. All right. Moving right along, Jen, what are your goals?
Well, showing up for office hours every day. I, as well, really appreciate that we're doing the writing sprint, because not only does it get my creative juices flowing, I'm able to put my characters into these sprints, most of them that we've done. Even the or give condolences to somebody whose cat just died. I literally was able to use that in a way that I actually think I might keep it in my story. So it was really fun. So editing, I joked about how slow it's going. It just feels slow to me. I honestly, this is going really well. And I believe that by this time next week, I will be all caught up with Jamie, and hopefully be able to put like a semi-finished stamp on it, which means format it, get a printed copy for the final proofreading, and be able to set a date of release. So
yes, yay.
So the cover is finished, except for like minor details, like formatting the back blurb to where it looks prettier, and doing little tweaks, because like I can't completely finish it until I know for sure. I know how many pages I have, and if your page number is off by a page or two, it's not going to make a difference in your cover. But yeah, so I'm really ready to rock and roll with this as soon as the editing is done. So by next week, be all caught up with Jamie and her edits, be at office hours every day, and I need to have all my plot points figured out for the Christmas short by next week if I'm to meet our deadline of mid-June.
All right, fair enough. What have you got to report for us, Rhonda?
Oh, so much. Okay. So accountability, you guys figured out how to get me into office hours every morning, even on museum days, by having the writing sprint. So good job on you.
Yay.
Okay. So office hours, the short story contest piece I was trying to write, I will determine, well, no, I'm not going to determine. Originally, I was going to determine after the postcast today if I'm going to go ahead and submit that, because I think I only have about a week and a half left. And it's just not working for me. I've tried 4 completely different outlines on this, and I just don't love it. But I decided during Jen's thing that I'm going to go ahead and submit it,
Good
whether
for
I
you.
like it or not. Because, I said I was going to try to submit something, and like the wise Yoda says, there is no try. So I'm just going to submit it. I'm going to finish that up hopefully in the next day or two and get it submitted before the weekend. My nonfiction, I've got my cover done, and I so wanted to show you guys, but I don't have any colored ink. I need to go to the office supply store today, and then I'll show you guys. But that's coming along. I expect that's going to be done very shortly. And for next week, I will have all my plot points also cemented in for my Christmas compilation.
So now what about your book that you're trying to publish? Do you have a new deadline day that you're working toward?
No, I haven't. I'm plugging away every day. I have finally, part of the problem is that I love research. It's my favorite part of it. And there's always more research to be done. And literally the night before my last deadline was done, or due, which I wasn't going to meet anyway, but I finally heard from a historical society with a ton of information about this family that I had been waiting for like 6 months. And I thought, God, you're funny. You're a funny, funny guy up there. So anyway, I decided that I probably will do a second book on this family and enlarge it and add that research to that, because one of the reasons I wasn't getting it done is, let me just research one more minute.
All right, but so maybe we can ask you about that next week too, and just see if you feel any pressing one way or the other about it.
Mhm.
Awesome. All right, ladies. Well, sounds like we're going to have a busy week.
Yeah.
I don't think next week is going to be interesting, right? Are we going to try to do Monday? Like, that's next week, right? Or is it the week after?
That's the week after.
The week after. So
You're
next
traveling
week,
next week though, right? So
right. So
next week will be pre-recorded. We've already decided what we're going to do. We will not be live and not live in chat. So we'll miss out on that, but there will still be an episode next week at 10 a.m.
Awesome.
And it will
Okay.
be a preview, a little kind of a inside look at what our postcast looks like.
Yes. If you're not aware of our postcast, which if you've listened to us for any amount of time, we kind of go on and on about it, but we really like it. And we really think that there's some material in there that could benefit everybody. So head over to Patreon, check us out there, subscribe for only $2 a month. You get to see what happens during our actual writing group and real critique, not just positive feedback. And like Jen said, you'll get to see an extra sneak peek glance at that next week instead of our normal podcast. All right. Anything else to add, ladies, before we go? All right. In that case, this concludes this episode of the Christian Indie Writers Podcast. So until next time, may your pen be prolific, may your deadlines be met, and may all of your words honor Christ. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.